let's talk about Leon really quick. Words of Paradise. Gay boy himself, right? So, Words of Paradise decided to make a very long post. A very, 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 very long post, right? And I gotta be honest with you. Very nicely done. Nicely done, right? He made a post talking about a particular manga that is being astroturfed by the mainstream industry, the mainstream manga industry, right? It's about a manga that is based around a protagonist that is mixed race in Japan and faces daily trials of racism, microaggressions, and otherness, right? A journey of resilience, hope, and the search for coexistence. Half is More, Volume 1 by Yoko Fujimi, releases summer of 2026, right? So it's so funny. I didn't even see this, which is odd because I actually follow Viz Media on Hypnotic manga, and I also on Instagram too. So maybe they didn't post on Instagram, but I didn't see it. So I saw this picture here, and I'm like, huh, this sounds very not Japanese, right? This sounds very not Japanese. It sounds like something that is being inorganically pushed, if I do say so myself, right? Now, people are going to say, well, it's a Japanese person that, drew this or wrote and draw this. Is it a by Yoko Fujimi? Is it written and drawn by Fujimi, or is it just drawn by Fujimi? I can't tell. Regardless, most likely it's written and drawn because normally that's how it goes. So I was going to read into this some more, but Words of Paradise kind of broke it down really nicely. And he says the following: there's been a lot of talk about this announcement and whether or not it's woke or DEI manga. I want to just mention something really quick, okay? For the people that don't read manga, I want to mention something really quick. When it comes to manga, okay? And I don't know if anime follows the same tropes because, to be honest, I don't watch that much anime. I focus completely on manga, okay? That's just my thing. Now, when it comes to manga, manga has a lot of situations in it, a lot of storyline in it, a lot of let's just say things in it that some Westerners would consider to be DEI woke or whatever. Not so much from the racial standpoint, but more so from the sexuality standpoint. There is a lot of that, right? In some manga. Most of the time they're treated as jokes, and most of the time they are not ham-fisted. They're not like throwing it in your face. They're not talking to you about pronouns. They're not talking to you about any of that. But obviously there's a lot of gay characters that run around in some mangas and whatnot. But it never feels forced. It never feels like it's being a lecture to you. It never feels like you're sitting in a room with a bunch of blue-haired writers trying to tell you how amazing they are and how right they are. You know what I mean? But it's definitely there. It's definitely there. So, unfortunately, when certain Westerners find that out, they disingenuously represent it, and they try to say, well, Japan is super woke. You know what I mean? Or like, Japan is super gay, or Japan is super whatever. They try to misrepresent it, okay? And the reason why they do that is because these people have unfortunately co-opted the anime and manga community. And whenever they co-opt something, they're constantly looking for validity. Constantly. Like they're always looking for some form of validation through the work they are consuming. And if they don't find that validation, they move on to something that they can find that validation. And even if it's something as small as sexuality, they're gonna do it. Right. So this is why we have people that look at otakonoko characters, which are basically femboys or men who dress as women, but will tell you they are men and will acknowledge they are men and they are not transitioning to become a woman. You will see Westerners take that information and say, this is trans representation, and try to claim it's the same thing. right? So this is why it happens. This is why localizers will translate disingenuously characters like that and turn them into trans characters when they never were, right? So with all that context being said, okay, with all that context being shown, this is not surprising, okay? This is not surprising in the slightest. Half is More, the Japanese title, is romanized as Hanban Koyadai and is published on TorchWeb. TorchWeb is a digital manga site owned by Lead Publishing Co. TorchWeb describes itself as a space for alternative expression and manga that explores mature, philosophical, and unconventional themes, covering topics like daily life, relationships, art, aging, and social issues. Some would consider this a red flag, though that's just the beginning, right? Sales data first serialized starting on June 29th of 2022 and did not get any physical release of Volume 1 until March 28, 2025. There was never any publicly disclosed sales data, digital or physical. Instead, we have to rely on Oricon. For those that don't know, Oricon is a major Japanese company that tracks and publishes music, manga, and entertainment sales charts. Oricon tracks weekly manga charts by volume, as well as yearly sales rankings, both digital and physical. Half is More has never once charted with Oricon, which means one can reasonably assume it didn't sell well at all in its native language and market. So, again, basically, this book did not sell well in Japan. That's like the short, sweet version of it. In reference to other digital storefronts and tracking, it also never cracked eBook Japan's monthly top sellers. It did get recognized in the award circuit. Specifically, it won Korea. This translates to Korea Night Owl Manga Award, an arbitrary award for late night reads, the sort of indie hipster stories that you would expect at the artsy upper class scene. These award ceremonies and rankings are funded by Korea themselves, with Korea just being an online lifestyle magazine. This is where it gets interesting. Obviously, winning an award like that at will, or it will at the very least, boost visibility, though there is nothing to indicate sales increased after winning the award. But when you look into Korea and where their funding comics come from, one of the big names that come up is Cool Japan Fund, which is a Japanese government-supported fund for creative content. Now, again, just keep listening because this is where it's going to get interesting. The Cool Japan Fund is a public-private investment fund and touts pro-ESG stances. In fact, on the Cool Japan Fund website, under news, there is a section dated on May 30th, 2025, that says it published a DE&I promotion policy and harassment prevention policy. What this means is that while the manga itself may not be being made or funded for the explicit reason for promoting woke or DEI sensibilities, the astroturfed buzz behind it from third parties absolutely is. So basically, what's happening here is that a certain ESG-focused group or investment group or whatever has discovered this manga and has now decided to take this manga and astroturf it and turn it into a message in the West. That is what I'm taking from this, and that is what I understand from this, okay? As for Viz Media's involvement in the localization Western distribution, Viz is owned by Japanese publishers Shogakukan Inc. and Shueisha Inc. So the next step was to see if BlackRock or any other usual suspects in terms of DEI investment companies had any stakes in Viz, Shogakukan, or Shueisha, and the answer is yes, Marubeni Corporation. Now, around a year ago, I did a video about Marubeni Corporation, how they are a Japanese DEI investment firm, similar to BlackRock and the like in the West, and how they are heavily investing in manga and anime. So how are they related? Well, Marubeni Corporation started a joint venture with Shogakukan and Shueisha in 2022 and has a 34% stake in the venture. So yes, there are ties to DEI investments in the Western release of this manga, and is being localized and distributed by Viz's parent company, who do have ties to at least one DEI investment firm. So, with all this being said, right? Yeah, this is the longest tweet I've ever seen from Leon, like ever. With all this being said, what this is that this is a story that most likely is not something that is necessarily woke in its nature per se, although it could be, because there are liberals in Japan. Obviously, there are stories like that in Japan. However, the story obviously fell completely flat in its native land, and it flopped. Right, it flopped massively. So the question is now the following: with all the mangas that are not being serialized, that are looking to be serialized or be published by Viz, out of all the mangas that are looking to be published by Viz, how is it that this manga that completely fucking flopped in its native land, how is this getting a massive astroturf by Viz Media right now, where it's getting its own posts and everything? How is this getting translated and pushed in the West? But there are other mangas and animes that are way more successful that are not being pushed in the West. Look how long it took for the manga Kingdom to get an English release. I just now got early access to volume number 1 of Kingdom. Okay, I have it. It's in my collection. That manga has been out for ages. Okay, it's got like over 70 volumes of history, and it's just now, after being super popular, one of the most popular mangas, it is just now getting an English release. But this one just magically gets an English release after flopping miserably in Japan. How is that possible, right? It just begs the question. So this is more about astroturfing than it is about ESG, DEI, any of that stuff. Although it all kind of goes hand in hand. But this seems like it's intentional, in my opinion, because they believe that this is going to be big in our market. That's what they're thinking. They're thinking this is going to be big in our particular market. So they're translating it and they're hoping that it's going to be, a major success. I'm here to tell you that it's probably not going to be. Like, just flat out. It's not going. I don't think it's going to be, me personally. But again, I could be wrong. Could be wrong. But that's what it seems like they're doing, right? So Leon says, at the end of the day, here's a short version. A niche manga that didn't sell well, wasn't heavily marketed, and who only claim to fame is winning an award funded by pro ESG DEI government-funded magazines, is now getting a Western release funded by a company that has ties to pro ESG and DEI investment corporations in Japan. And then he says, you're all welcome, and you don't deserve me. Of course, Leon's going to say that. So this is a great post by Leon. Fantastic. It is going pretty decent. 20,000 views right now, 2,600 likes. Fantastic. And this is just another example of this kind of mindset, unfortunately, being pushed here, even though it's failing in its native land. And then they'll try to tell you, oh, but the Japanese love this stuff, because that's what's going to happen, right? When they push this manga out in the West, they're going to try to convince everybody that this is loved in Japan. So again, it's so ridiculous, but this is where we're at. So great post, Leon. I wanted to make sure I cover it because he covers my videos a lot. And this is something that was very, very good post. Very well done. And I appreciate it. As a manga enthusiast, I appreciate it. I can't wait to see the people who say, you don't buy manga. You don't read manga. You're grifter. You're a liar. Suck a dick. Anyway.